Hello, everybody. This is exciting for me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Anyway, and I'm nervous. I'm rarely nervous up here, but here's what happened. The Lord told me last night that he wasn't going to give me anything, basically. So he did. He was a little kinder than he originally said. He gave me a little bit, and then just a second ago, he gave me like the last piece, and now I'm terrified because it's kind of a terrifying message, a little bit. So, I mean, maybe it's not, maybe it's encouraging, but I guess it depends where you're sitting, right? Or maybe it won't be terrifying at all. Maybe it's just what I think, or maybe it's terrifying for me. I mean, there's so many options here. Anyway, okay. We also don't have the ability to have verses up on the screen, so I am going to attempt to do this without you guys being able to see, which I'm kind of used to you being able to follow along and see what I'm seeing. So we'll just see how this goes. Anyway, all right. So here's the other thing that the Lord was talking to me about. And he said, I want to talk about faith tonight. And I said, oh, that sounds good. And he said, okay, well, then get ready to be vulnerable. So I don't know what that's going to look like yet. He hasn't really told me. But what he reminded me of was when George was sick. So I think, I don't know if there's any new faces in the room, but anyway, I lost my husband to cancer coming up this month on 3 years ago. And when George was sick, we spent, both of us did, a lot of time in Philippians. And so the Lord asked me to go back, and I haven't read that much of Philippians since then, because it kind of reminds me of all that other stuff. But I went back last night and I was reading it. And for those of you who are maybe not as familiar with Philippians, Paul wrote this letter from prison. And so he has a very unique perspective on, things like trials and tribulations, which is kind of why we were reading it when George was sick, right? Because it's like, well, if Paul can write these very encouraging letters from prison, surely we can have a good attitude in our situation. So anyway, I guess we should just dive right in. All right, so I am reading from Philippians 1, and I'm just going to start here in verse 6. And Paul says this, he says, "For I am confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will perfect it or make it complete until the day of Christ Jesus." How's that for the start of a letter? And if we start there and we think about Paul in prison, and he's literally suffering more than any of us have suffered before. And he's suffering and he's saying, listen, guys, whatever it is you're going through, I'm telling you from the place that I am sitting that I have confidence, because I know what's true for me is going to be true for you, that God who began a good work in you is going to not stop until it's complete. Good news, right? Kinda. No, it's good news. It's good news, but here's the thing. And there's a reason why we read Philippians when we're all, maybe having a hard time, is because sometimes we just need that perspective, right? That is one of the things that got me through the hardest season of my life. Perspective. And the understanding that God is who he says he is, and he doesn't change based on circumstance. Now, why are we talking about that tonight? Good question. I'm sure you were all thinking that exact question at that exact moment. Why are we talking about this tonight? Okay, we're supposed to be learning about who God is. That's what he said for the year, right? We're going to learn who he is. Well, we're going to learn who he is. He's the God that once he starts something, he does not stop. All right, let's go on here in Philippians. All right, going to verse 9. And this I pray. Oh, by the way, he in between verse 6 and verse 9, he was talking about his imprisonment, just so you know. Okay, he's setting the stage. All right, and this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment. Just because we don't have it up on the screen, I'm going to read it one more time. Okay, I'll just go through this slowly. And this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment. That word love there in this particular text is referring to what the Greek calls a love feast. It is an affection feast. It is the kind of love that is very demonstrative. It's, I kind of imagine it like a table full of dessert. For those who like dessert. For those who are more salty, maybe a table full of chips. But it's a place where you can come and you can gorge and just eat and eat and eat, and it's delicious and it's yummy, and you just are in your happy place. Interesting that Paul writes about a love feast from prison, don't you think? It's perspective. All right, reading verse 9 one more time. This I pray, that your love feast may abound still more and more as you come to a real knowledge of who God is. That word real there in the Greek actually just means correct. As you come to a correct knowledge of who God is, I am praying that your love for him will grow and grow and grow. As you're experiencing his love, that your love will grow and grow and grow. Remember, going back to verse 6, I am confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Christ Jesus. See, he's brought us to the table. He's brought us into his family. I was just teaching a bunch of stuff about Ephesians, and Ephesians is all about being part of God's family. He's brought us into his family, and he's saying, hey, listen, you're in my family. Now we've got stuff to do. We're going to transform your life. I'm going to show you who I am, and you're going to fall in love with me, and we're going to be at this love feast together. And as we're feasting, I'm going to bring you to a correct knowledge of who I am. So that, verse 10, you may approve the things that are excellent, in order to be sincere and blameless until the day of Christ. Let's just dive into that a little bit. That word there, approve, has to do with testing and examining something. As you are coming to the correct knowledge of who God is, I want you to examine the truth. I want you to examine your life according to who I am. And that word excellent, this was the real kicker for me, and I've spent all day puzzling over this one. It doesn't translate the same at all. They're not even like in the same zone. And so I'm puzzled about why they translated it this way. But let me tell you what it means in the Greek. That word excellent, and then I'll read it again just so we know again what we're talking about. It refers to bearing through something, so that what it's actually saying is you are carrying something on your back as you're going. One of the examples that's used for the Greek is a ship that is bearing a cargo and is going from point A to point B. And I thought, we translated that to excellent? Okay. Still puzzling over that a little bit, but here's the conclusion that I'm coming to here. As we have stepped into his family and he is showing us who he is and he is doing a good work in us that is going to be brought to completion, the most important thing that we as his kids have to know is that he is doing this as we are going. As we are bearing things that are often heavy, he is bringing our knowledge of him to completion in the middle of a love feast. Not bad, right? And there's just a little bit more. That word excellent also refers to going to a more excellent place. That's where excellent comes in. So as we're going, as we're carrying the loads that we carry in life, we are finding out who he is more and more and more, and we are going to a more excellent place. But see, Paul, who is writing this from prison, didn't say that the moment we join his family, it's a table full of lollipops. Even though, we're at a love feast. But he didn't promise us that the journey was going to be easy. What he promised is what he said in verse 6, that he who began a good work in you will perfect it or make it complete until the day of Jesus Christ. And we go on from there. Let me just read verse 10 again so that we know where we are still. Okay? So that you may examine the things that are excellent, so that you may examine and see that he is working in your journey, that he is getting you from point A to point B, in order that you may be sincere and blameless until the day of Christ. Now, here's the kicker, okay? This is where I got scared. The word sincere translates exactly to this: pure as by the sun. So in the brightest light, there is nothing that is less than perfect. And blameless has to do with being unoffendable and not sinning. So, that's where I go, ooh. And I just want to bring us back one more time to the reminder that Paul is writing this from prison. And what he's saying here is God will work in you. As you go, as you have the things that you carry on your back, as you go through things like your husband being diagnosed with cancer, as you go through things like losing your husband, obviously I'm talking about me, as you go through trying to figure out how to raise 4 kids, on your own, or at least without their dad, maybe not fully on my own. I didn't do that. I had wonderful people. But as you go through the hard parts of life, if we will stay with him. See, that word approve has to do with examining things, meaning that we are looking at what's happening in our lives and we are looking for where he is. See, I'm examining my life. I'm examining my circumstances, not to say, God, you're bad or wrong, or how could you allow this to happen? But I'm actually examining my life, looking for where are you? Because I need you. See, and when we do that, then we are sincere and blameless. See, we can stay pure in the brightest light. We can stay unoffendable. We can stay sinless. We can make him our friend, our savior, our source, not the enemy. How could you let this happen? No. See, yesterday, I had a trigger. One, Vicky's laughing because we had coffee and I was crying in Starbucks. But that was after I was in my house yelling and screaming and freaking out because I needed to let out a bunch of grief that had built up. It's really fun. Whole bunch of fun. Okay? Anyway, the triggers are great because it's like the pressure builds and builds and builds, and then something triggers it and it just all comes out, and then it's out. It's good. But anyway, as I was having this meltdown, okay, I'm once again screaming, why? Why did you let this happen to me? Why am I going through this? Why is it so hard? But guess who I'm screaming to? I am screaming to a Father who has set before me a table of dessert, whose love is more than enough for me, so that even when I feel alone, I can still scream to him, I feel alone, where are you? And he comes close. And then I examine my circumstances, I examine the load that I'm carrying, and I realize it's not so heavy after all. See, that's the God we serve. And we all have loads in our life, don't we? It doesn't matter if yours is a big tragedy like mine. Maybe you've had big tragedies. Maybe it's not that big of a thing, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because we are all on the journey. We are all walking and we are all carrying something, a load, because it's life. But see, the God we're supposed to be seeking, the God who is doing a good work in us, see, we're to be looking to him and examining and saying, where are you? Oh, see, if I say, where are you? I'm not saying, where are you? I'm saying, where are you? Need ya? Come on. Like I would call a friend. I need someone to talk to. Ring. Right? Or why did you let this happen to me? But I'm talking to him, and he's not far away. He's right here. And as I examine my life through the presence of God who is right beside me, see, the load is okay. See, we can do this. He and I, we, you and him, you. See, you can do this with him. And you can walk out this life. And you will be found pure and unoffendable and sinless until the day of Christ. Now, verse 11. Having been filled with the fruit of righteousness, which comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. That word fruit there, that's referring to ripe fruit that is ready to be picked. And guys, that's what I want my life to be. Ripe fruit that is ready to be picked. It's the fruit of righteousness which comes through Christ Jesus, and it gives glory and praise to God. See, when George was diagnosed with cancer, it was an interesting day. It was April Fool's 2019. I know, right? Good joke. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. And we're driving back from the hospital, and we were talking. He was finally starting to wake up and join me, and we're talking, and I remember George looking at me, and he said, "Well, I guess if cancer is what we're doing, then the cancer center must need Jesus." And he just had this really incredible perspective on suffering. And as he was sick, his focus narrowed. I remember him telling me that his focus had narrowed and very little mattered to him except Jesus. And finding him in the middle of what he was going through. And for me, my journey was a little different, but it's essentially the same. In that my circumstances have forced me to have laser focus on the only thing that matters. And the passion of my life and the direction of my life is to find out who he really is. Because I want what he started in me to be complete, to be made perfect. Because the only thing that mattered to either one of us was that his glory would be shown through us. And that sounds all maybe very spiritual. But listen, when you're in the middle of that stuff, it's just survival. Finding him is how we survive. Having perspective is how we make it. But that perspective is only going to come when our eyes are on him. Did you hear that? I'm going to say that one more time. The right perspective is only going to come when our eyes are on him. So whatever it is you're going through, if you're going through something, the only perspective that matters for you is, where is he? What are you doing? Who are you? See, the journey really shifted drastically for me. I know many of you have heard this story before, but I'll share it anyway. The goal of my life, I guess. Once George was diagnosed, obviously, I wanted George healed. of course, right? Wouldn't we all? And I was on a journey to increase my faith because I know that it takes faith for healing. And I was fasting and I was doing the things to get more spiritual so that I would have more faith, so that God would like me better, so that he would do what I wanted. Right? Maybe you've done that. Maybe you haven't. I think we've all done it to some degree. And the Lord stopped me one day and he said, look up the word faith. So I looked up the word faith and basically, in a nutshell, the word faith is basically, the meaning of it is knowing who he is. That's what faith, it's a little more specific than that, but basically faith is just knowing who he is. I know that you are creator and ruler. I know that you exist. See, and when my perspective shifted from I need him healed to show me who you are, that's when everything changed. See, because then my circumstances became second to my pursuit of him, just like George did. And there was ups and downs and valleys and screaming and crying and weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth. And in no way has this been an easy journey, but I am in a better place now by far than I ever have been. And it's not because I've been through something hard and I'm really amazing. It's because I determined that I would keep my eyes on him, that all I really, really want out of life is to find out who he is. And do I know all the way? Of course not. He's really big. But see, when I get that right, in the little stuff every day, in the thing that's next in front of me, whatever it is, whatever situation I find myself in right now, or the now that is, right, in the moment, if I can keep my perspective on who are you, and I'm doing this with you, I choose to do this with you. See, then everything shifts into correct gear. See, because he's still Lord. See, not one time did I ever consider turning my back on him. And again, that is not because I am incredibly spiritual and far superior to all. It is because my prayer was, show me who you are. And when I prayed, show me who you are, he did. And he showed up for me. And he made it clear to me because I was determined that I would keep my eyes on him, and I asked him for help with that. Help me keep my eyes on you. No matter what happens, I don't want to turn away from you. And I don't want my extreme situation to make it seem like this is not something that we do every day. See, because I do this 10 times a day, 20 times a day, 30 times a day, 50 times a day. Still. And generally, I'm not in crisis anymore. What do I do now, Lord? What do you think of this, Lord? What do you want me to do? Am I supposed to say this or not say anything? All day. And so if we can kind of come back around for a minute to Paul, who was in prison and who recognized that God he's going to finish what he started. As long as we will examine where God is as we're going. Why is this a message for tonight? I'm not exactly sure. I hope it's not because stuff's coming down the pipe. But I don't think so. That's not the sense that I have. What I think is that he wants us to be reminded of the fact that we are going. And as we are walking, right? We have to recognize that he is working. And he is working all day, through every decision we make, through every conversation we have, through the perspective that we keep. And if we're willing to allow him in to whatever it is that's happening in your now, what he began in you will be perfected. And listen, Father's House, we are called to be the light of the world. We are called to be the light of the world. We are called to be the kind of Christians that Paul talked about. We are called to be the kind of pure that the sunlight can find no flaw in. Because that's the kind of pure that shines really bright. So maybe you have a circumstance that you need to find him in. Maybe you just needed the reminder that he is doing something, whether you can see it or not. But you've got to get your perspective right. And I highly recommend the prayer, show me who you are. If that's one of the only things you pray, you're going to go a long way. So the altar's open. If you happen to want to come up and pray that prayer, help me keep my eyes on you. Show me where you are, what you're doing. And maybe he's not going to show you what he's doing. I had to surrender my right to an answer, but why he did what he did, why he allowed what he allowed. And that was the best decision I ever made. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Because you have been with me and you have taken me from where I was to the best place I've ever been, despite the journey. And he's real. He's right here. All right, so listen, this is the very formal end, but he's here. Spend some time with him.
Thanks for watching the Father's House Orville YouTube channel, but don't stop there. We'd love you to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a live service or a video. Help us spread the message of Jesus by sharing this video with your friends. You can also support the Father's House financially by clicking the Give button. Thanks again for watching today, and we hope to see you again soon.